Hello, everyone. Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It is Monday morning. It is that time of the week. I hope you're having a good one wherever you are watching or listening to this around the world. Although it's Monday morning, which is never the greatest of times, let's face it, it's not. But it does mean that we are now in the week where Premier League football return. This one is dragged. I don't know about you, but this one has dragged this international break. It feels like we've been in it for about 4 weeks now, rather than just 1 week. And you know what the worst thing of it all is? We got another one right around the corner. As soon as we come back from this, already we're going to be thinking about the November international break. Ugh. I know lots of people love international football. I love international football as well. But it's just these first couple at the start of the season that it is just, you're just like, oh God, just find a bit of momentum. Let's get ourselves into the Premier League season rather than stop. But it is what it is. And we are getting through it. Congratulations, by the way, to Ghana. I know I've got a lot of Arsenal fans in Ghana who watch this show and listen to this show, qualified for the World Cup yesterday. Congratulations to you. We will round up last night's international action. There was a couple of Arsenal players involved for their national team. So we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show. We're going to talk about Jack Wilshere, who has got his first senior managerial job just been announced. Knew it's happening, but it is now officially being confirmed. He is the new Luton Town manager in League One. So we'll talk about that. Jack, of course, could have returned to Arsenal in the summer as part of the under-21 setup, but decided to wait because he wanted to get a job in senior football, and now he's got one. And it's an exciting job for him as well. So we'll talk about that. I've got other bits and pieces to talk about. But I wanted to start today's show by talking about this man. If you watch on YouTube, Piero Hincapie, obviously a big money, well, I say big money summer signing. He will, of course, be a big money summer signing next summer because Arsenal have technically only got him on loan for this season to balance the books and all that sort of stuff. But he will sign permanently for Arsenal next summer. And we've barely seen him for a few minutes. We saw him come on in the Champions League against Athletic Club. And that's it. Since then, he's been injured. And we've not been able to see a summer signing who we're all really, really excited about. But he is due to return when Arsenal players return from international action this week and they come back to London Colney and they start training ahead of the game against Fulham at the weekend. Piero Hincapie is due, according to Mikel Arteta, to join in with them and should be available, fingers crossed, for the trip to Craven Cottage at the weekend. Whether he's involved in it is obviously going to be up to Mikel Arteta, but he should, barring anything that's happened during the international break that we don't know about, sort of injury-wise or setback-wise, he should be available for the first time properly for a while. So I just wanted to have a little bit of a chat about him, what his return is going to do, and what we might see from him, and what we might see from Mikel Arteta in terms of how he uses him as well, because he remains a little bit of a mystery at the moment because we just haven't had the opportunity to really see exactly what he can do yet in an Arsenal shirt. Everyone who'd watched a lot of him, a lot more than me in Germany, really excited about this signing and what he's going to bring to Arsenal and potentially what he could mean for players playing further up the pitch ahead of him, especially Emirates Stadium. And how that relationship could work with Piero Hincapie getting on the overlap, Eza drifting into the more central positions. And that could be an exciting partnership that Arsenal use at times this season when Mikel Arteta picks and chooses his team. So I'm really interested by Hincapie. He looks this really aggressive, strong, fast, athletic specimen that Arsenal have signed who could really change the way at times they play. He's going to have a real battle on his hands to get many minutes straight away because he's coming up against Ricardo Calafiori and Miles Lewis-Skelly, of course. But Ricardo Calafiori, who started the season so well at left back, and although Hincapie can play as a left-sided centre back and has done that a lot during his time in Germany, a lot of people sort of look at his position as potentially being left back in this Arsenal setup. Again, we have to wait and see because we just haven't seen enough evidence yet to suggest exactly where Arteta's going to use him. When he did come on against Athletic Club, it was in that left back position. But you look at his attributes and you do wonder, especially with that link up with Eze. I asked Mikel Arteta about this at a press conference a while ago, about how maybe that partner, he might well be using sort of partnerships when he looks at how he's going to set his team up and how he's going to rotate things as the season really starts to progress. Are we going to see partnerships forming there? So will we see Martinelli and Calafiori? Are they going to be paired together most of the time when they're on the pitch, and then potentially have Eze and Hincapie paired together a lot of the time that they are on the pitch. Now, we've got a lot of games coming up now after this international break. Just this week, for example, it's Fulham, tricky away game. I mean, Hincapie, you won't imagine is going to play in that, but then suddenly it's Atletico Madrid in midweek, and then you've got I've totally forgotten. Crystal Palace, isn't it, the week after? And then you've got the Brighton League Cup game coming up fairly soon as well. And the Champions League really starts to kick in. So there's plenty of games to go around. Hincapie is going to see plenty of football. And I'm just really, really interested to see what we're going to see from him and how we're going to see Arteta use him, because it is just that sort of mystery that we haven't seen yet. And he's really added to Arsenal's strength in depth as well. So this is something I'm really excited about in this little next chunk of games that we've got coming up this period of the season. The one summer signing we've not really seen too much of yet, that hopefully from this point onwards we're going to see plenty of. And judging by people, as I said, who've seen far more of Piero Hincapie than I have, we should be seeing a player who is going to make watching that left-hand side when he's on the pitch a pretty enjoyable place to be. So yeah, looking forward to that one. Let me know your thoughts. Are you excited like I am about the return of Piero Hincapie after this international break? Player we have just not seen much of yet at all, who's going to cost a lot of money next summer. Let me know your thoughts on him in the comments below. Obviously, he's not involved in international action. He would have been with Ecuador had he not been injured this international break. We saw some players in action yesterday, including Jurien Timber, played for the Netherlands. I think he played about sort of 63 minutes, something along those lines in their win yesterday. Played at centre-back alongside Virgil van Dijk, which is a position we're seeing him play for the Netherlands at the moment. Injury-free, played his 2 games. Back you come, Jurien. Back you come, and get ready for the game against Fulham this weekend. So that was good to see from him. Christian Norgard also in action yesterday for Denmark. Really valuable minutes. Played the whole game for Denmark in their win as well. So that's really great to see. I think Christian Norgard, like Hincapie, who we're just talking about there, I think we're going to see Norgard become a much more important player over these next period of games that Arsenal have got coming up, when we start seeing games, we're starting to really sort of fall into that routine of 2-3 games a week rather than just what we've seen at the start of the season. So I think it'll be really valuable for Norgard to have got those minutes. We've got a few players in action today. Victor Gyökeres and Sweden need a result here at home against Kosovo to really kickstart their disappointing start to World Cup qualifying. And Victor Gyökeres would certainly be eyeing up a goal, you would think, on that one. It'd be nice for him to come back from international duty with a goal behind him. William Saliba in action a little bit later on again for France. They're playing in Iceland. Leandro Trossard travels to Wales, so at least Trossard's not got too much travel to come when that game's finished. He can just jump onto the M4 and head back into London after that one. And Ethan Nwaneri had a really good game last time out for the under-21s in their win against Moldova. They are in action in Derby later on today, playing against Andorra. So that's the latest when it comes to the internationals tonight. I'm going to talk about Jack Wilshere. Actually, before I talk about Jack Wilshere, let me just take him off the screen so he's not distracting. Just stay on the international picture. Martin Odegaard, obviously I showed yesterday that video of Norway celebrating, I said qualifying for the World Cup. They haven't technically qualified for the World Cup yet, so apologies about that, but they are very, very close to qualifying for the World Cup. But Solbakken, the manager, has been speaking about those celebrations and Odegaard not joining in. He was asked, and he said Odegaard was just terrified of sticking his knee in there. As it was sort of like a jokey answer. So I took from that response, and maybe I'm reading a little bit too much into that, but the way he sort of said it, I'm taking from that maybe it's not the worst of things, but no one's saying anything. Like Norway, normally you get a lot from their club doctor. I think it's Ola Sand, their national team doctor. It says an awful lot at times, giving injury updates, which I always think some of the clubs, especially Arsenal, won't be too fond of. But he's saying nothing during this international break. He was asked about it and he said, Arsenal, I can't say anything. It's all on Arsenal to say anything. So we're getting no updates. I was hoping we might get a little bit of an indication from the Norway side of things, but we've had nothing yet. But Mikel Arteta's press conference will be on Friday. I think we're not being fully notified yet, but I think it will definitely be on Friday when we'll certainly get an update from him, hopefully on the status of Martin Odegaard. Right, let me bring Jack Wilshere back up onto the screen. This is one of these things comes around in football every so often that just makes you feel old. And Jack Wilshere being officially now a manager makes me feel old. I have to say, it makes me feel old. But he has been appointed in charge of Luton Town in League One. Luton, of course, just 18 months ago, pretty much for a Premier League team. But they've been on a very downward spiral since then. It has not gone well for Luton. They've chopped and changed the managers, trying to sort of stop the slide that they've been on, and now they've turned to Jack Wilshere. Which I think is a really interesting move, a really good potential move for Jack. It's a club that he knows well. He's always lived around that area where Luton is as well. Jack, he knows players in that dressing room. He was actually there as a kid in the academy before he moved to Arsenal. I think he was part of the Luton sort of youth setup there when he was about sort of 8 years old, and then he moved to Arsenal when he was 9. So it's a club he knows, which might well help. And I think they've appointed Chris Powell, the old Charlton manager and been in the England setup. They've appointed him as Jack's assistant. I think that's a really smart move there. And hopefully he does really well, Jack. He was talking about it on the website. He says it's a huge honour and privilege to be named Luton manager. Feels like a full circle moment for me. I was 8 when I first came to Luton as a boy. So I guess you could say it's fate that my first full-time managerial position is at this club. I couldn't be more delighted to be here. I can't wait to manage this football club. Like I said, it's a tough gig, this one, just because of the trajectory that they've been on. It's tough to turn things around when a club has been on a slide for as long as Luton have been on a slide. But if you can get things right, it's a club that not long ago was a Premier League outfit, albeit it was a very surprising promotion that they got to the Premier League that season. But they gave a good account of themselves in the Premier League. They just haven't been able to adjust since dropping out of the league. And it's just been that slide. So someone needs to go in there, stop that slide, turn things around, get some momentum back into the football club. And it'd be fantastic if it is Jack. He could have gone back to Arsenal in the summer. He did have talks about returning for the under-21 setup, but he decided to stay out of Arsenal and wait for a job in senior football. And this is a decent job. I think it's a hard job, but it's a decent job. And from the several times that I've spoken to Jack and interviewed Jack in the last few years while he's been making his way in the coaching game, every conversation I've had with him, every interview I've come away from with Jack, you come away from it thinking, you can just sense the hunger to do really, really well. And he's learned a lot, and he's taken that all in from being in the under-18s, from working closely with Mikel Arteta at London Colney, the move to Norwich, all that sort of stuff. Hopefully that's just going to really pay off for him, and he's going to get things right at Luton Town, because if he can, then be absolutely fantastic for him. So best of luck, Jack Wilshere. I'm sure you'll all join me in saying that. I think it's one player or one person, should I say now, that every Arsenal fan would just love to see do well and make his way in the managerial game, and that is Jack Wilshere. So best of luck to him. Important win for the women yesterday. Not the greatest of performances. I didn't sit down and watch it all. I have to say it was my wife's anniversary yesterday. 13 years married, so we did have a day sort of celebrating yesterday with the kids and some family. So I wasn't able to really pay too much attention to the women game, but I've watched the highlights today, read up on it, what everyone had to say, and the main thing yesterday was just win. When you've been on the sort of run of form that the women have been on recently, and confidence is going to be low, belief's going to be low, it's just about sort of halting that run and getting a win any way that you can. And they did that yesterday. They got a bit of luck with a goal. They got a lot of luck with a goal, deflected cross from Olivia Smith, obviously going in. But they held on. They saw it through. Van Donsela made a great save in the second half to keep it at 1-0. There was other chances for Arsenal to extend their lead that they didn't take. But ultimately, just get the 3 points and move on. And you sort of listened to what Renée Slegers said after the game, and she was very much of that opinion as well. I think she knew, anyone in football knows, when you've not been on a great run, it's never easy to get back to winning ways. You just take it any way that you can. And Arsenal did that yesterday, and hopefully they can move on. So I think they're 5th in the table now in WSL, below Spurs, which is never a good thing in any league that you're playing in. But they're only 5 points adrift to Chelsea. Chelsea have dropped points in one of the games this season. So just try and stay within touch and distance and get things sorted again. So it's an important win anyway for the women yesterday. A couple of comments and questions now before we wrap this one up. Michael has got in touch and says, Odegaard was probably being cautious. Imagine being well on the way to recovery and then you make your knee worse by celebrating with your team. Total rest and careful manipulation is best for knee injuries, especially in the first couple of weeks. Hopefully he won't need surgery, which will mean he'll be back sooner rather than later. And we won't lose him for the entire season. Zubi is class and a joy to watch. He is indeed. Yeah, well, as I said, Stella Solbakken saying that Odegaard just didn't join in those celebrations because he was terrified of sticking his knee in the middle of them. And you can, yeah, you're right. Hopefully just being cautious. It would be the word. Imagine go back to Arsenal and saying, what have you done? How have you aggravated the knee injury more? Oh, I slipped on some champagne in the changing room, jumping around, celebrating Norway's win. Wouldn't have gone down very well at all, would it? So hopefully he was just being cautious. And one thing I know about Martin Odegaard is that he is a very, very professional guy and he will not be wanting to take any risks and he will want to get back to full fitness as soon as possible. One here from Gas09898. He says, Charles, your comments on Gabriel are quite surprising. Gabriel Jesus, are quite surprising. He is costing the club a huge amount each week with little or nothing in return by the way of game time and goals. In business terms, he quantifies as a liability. It's been a few seasons now, and I think it's time for us to get rid ASAP and bring in another striker to add more variation to our attacking options. Keeping him has risk written all over it. I don't disagree with you here. And I do think the time is going to be right very, very soon for Gabriel Jesus to move on. And to be honest, I do expect Arsenal will try their best to do that. I don't think it will necessarily be that easy because of his injury records and because of the wages that he's on. All I was saying yesterday was, for me, in January, is just I wouldn't do it then. At the end of the season, fine. Let's try and move him on. Get someone who, let's face it, is costing a lot of money, who hasn't been able to play much football. Let's get him off the wage bill. Bring someone else in if possible. But I just don't I look at January as being, is that going to be realistic? I don't think it really is, because he'd have just come back. I can't see anyone really taking him at that point. And if that is going to be the case, then just keep him. If someone comes in with a loan offer, I mean, are Arsenal going to benefit from that massively? Are they going to go out and replace him in January? No, I don't see any way, if they let him out on loan in January, that they're going to go and sign a striker to replace him. They'll just go with what else they've got left. And that's what I'm saying. It's just, I don't really see the point of that now. Just keep him for the rest of the season and just try and use him. Even if in one game that benefits Arsenal and it ends up helping them potentially win the league, that'll be worth it. That's all I'm saying. It's just go all in on this season now. They've started the season. They did it in the summer with the signings they made and the squad that they've built. Just see it through now, just for this season. See it through and then do what you need to do in the summer. That's what I was saying. But I do agree, long term, I think it's pretty clear that it is time, unfortunately, that Arsenal have to move on from Gabriel Jesus. And that is it from me. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening. Anything you want me to talk about in tomorrow's show, let me know in the comments below. Questions, opinion, anything like that. And I'll pull something together as always and get them included in the show. Take it easy, everyone. I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.